Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro, brought to you by the Wager Fund. Glad you could join us. We're just talking about Urban Meyer and just a bunch of nonsense. I hope they just get rid of this guy. And then I hope he becomes the next UNLV football coach. No, that's not true. I want Sanchez to succeed. I do. Well, I mentioned this next guest coming up here. Man, he played on a great Fresno State basketball team when Jerry Tarkanian was coaching. They had Final Four potential written all over it. And then there was a point-shaving scandal. It happened in 1997. Dominic has a book coming out in March, and Dominick Young joining us right now live on the KDWN hotline. Dominic, I appreciate you coming on, my man. How you doing? Dominic, are you there? Did we lose Dominic? I don't hear him. That's okay. We'll try. We'll give. See, he's trying to point shave my show. That's what he's doing right now. No, we'll give Dominic a call back. But this was back, and I remember Chris Herren because he had a lot. They did a 30 for 30 on him. Do you remember that?
I do.
It was on ESPN. They did a 30 for 30 on him. He played for the Celtics for a little bit. That guy had. Do you remember the stories he told in that 30 for 30 when he was just high out of his mind? Well, not on marijuana, on some other stuff.
Oh yeah. And
the guy was scoring 35, 40 points. It was completely ridiculous. We'll have to ask him about that. But Dominic, is that you?
Can you guys hear me? How you doing, B?
I'm doing good, my man. Hey, can you do me a favor? Turn down your radio for me.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're getting an echo. I don't like hearing my voice more than once.
Yeah, my voice freaks me out.
Yeah. Anyway, Dominic, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. I'm here, guy. How
All right.
you feel?
Thanks, Dominic. Now, I know you got this book coming out in March. We'll get to that. But before we get to that book, I want to bring you back to the year 1997. And you guys had a phenomenal team. A lot of people thought you had Final Four potential on that Fresno State team with, of course, Jerry Tarkanian as the head coach. Explain to me, and take us back, if you will, for a little bit, these two gamblers, how you first got in touch with them. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was Dan Geladian, right? And then this car salesman, Kirkor. How did you first get involved with these guys? What was that first conversation like?
I never knew those guys there. What I heard through the news was that I guess some of the other guys, Chris and them, knew those guys. Actually, I met Kirk Tarkanian before. I've never met those other guys, but I've heard of them later on.
So this guy's a car salesman. He offers you, and correct me if I'm wrong, jewelry and other things in order to basically not necessarily lose basketball games, but to not cover the spread. Is that correct?
Nah, here's where everyone has it mixed up. Everyone said, hey, it was point shaving and everything going on. And it wasn't. We weren't trying to lose games and throw games. We wanted to be, number one in the country with what we were doing. But what was going on, it was just a lot of gambling going on, tons of gambling. As far as just within the inner circles within the city and players, I mean, just like when you at the park and somebody say, "Hey, you hit this shot, I'm gonna give you $50."
Mm-hmm.
Instead of $50, it's $5,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, it was too much of that going on. That I guess at times when our games didn't turn out the way they should. Mm-hmm. They started, rumors and, you know how it goes.
Now, I know this guy, Dan Geladian, who you said you never met, was allegedly betting $25,000 a game and only lost one game when you guys actually did cover the spread. So, and I know you never met him before. So you're saying that if the spread was 9 or 10 and you guys won the game by 5 or 6, is that a fair assessment? Because some people would still consider that point shaving.
Well, exactly who and how they, were constructing their numbers, I don't know. But I know every 3-pointer I'm getting, 500, 1,000, 2,000, every steal, So it was things like that going on as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a lot of money floating around there, and it was that good time. So I mean. Everybody's making shots and dunks. Who's not going to put their money on that?
Right, understandable. And your former teammate Chris Herren, I don't know when it was the last time you spoke with him.
Right.
I
spoke to Chris actually about like 3-4 years ago. Actually, about maybe about 8 years ago, he was at my house. It was really, really crazy. I never did drugs and all of that. You know what I mean? I used to take the piss test for the guys and on the team, but it was a lot of things going on that I didn't know about when I saw him recently at that time. And my lady at the time, she told me, don't bother him. I wanted to kick him out of my house.
Right.
But
did you ever see him do any drugs like heroin or anything hard like that?
I've never seen him until after, like I said, about 8 years ago, because I never wanted to believe it. You know what I mean? I never wanted to believe it because he's my best friend. He was my roommate. He was my man, So
Dominic, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You know what a talented player Chris Herren was. When you see Chris Herren just absolutely destroying his body with these drugs, okay?
Right.
And even if you didn't see it you knew what he was doing. Everybody did.
Right.
How difficult is that for you to see one of your teammates go through what Herren is going through, knowing that he had beyond NBA potential?
Well, the crazy thing about it is, I was wondering, and I figured out later, I was wondering when we was in practice, I was really competitive. I was really after it. I had to really make it. That's what my thing was. And
right.
He was always missing practice or, always, in the games of just, in practice of just, pinching me.
Hey, Dominic, let me just stop you for 1 second, please. If you could refrain from the swear words because we're live.
Okay, sorry
that's okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
But he was always messing with me in practice and pinching me and just kicking me and I'm like, what's wrong with this dude? And a couple of times we would go out, Chris and I, because I stayed with him all the time, and we go to restaurants and and we have a good time, but a lot of waitresses and things would really be upset in serving us. So Danny called us in the office and damn near choked both of us and said, if I go to another restaurant and the server tells me that they have to throw sticks for who they're going to serve,
right?
You guys are going to get suspended. But it was a lot of that going on because he was always drunk. You know what I mean? And I just still accepted him as my best friend and everything. And I just love the fact that he's able to get over it. He's over it now. He has a wellness center. Like, whoa, okay.
So he's turned his life around.
Yeah, he turned his life around. You know what I mean? I want to call him sometimes and say, hey, man, let's sit back and have a beer or a glass of wine, but I can't even do that.
So yeah, of course not. Yeah. So everything that was going on with that team, obviously the gambling and the money and then the drugs. That's
too much.
I mean, just absolute craziness and nonsense. What did you think the full potential was of that team if everybody was clean and just focused on what they were doing?
Well, if everyone, and it started with me. I come from a city and a place where I really had nothing. And to get to Fresno and to work on my game and to have people offering me things at that point in time really changed my life. And I think that, had it not been for me, living, I had 4 or 5 cars in college. And I think I set the wrong example for, my teammates. And it just spiraled. Everybody just, really wanted to have the star life because that's what I had. And then, it went from one thing and, it got wild. It got really, really crazy. And, I just hope that, Fresno and Fresno State really gets back, to that star level because, we learned our lessons and we're all here to, see Fresno State and even UNLV get back there because UNLV was like our brother. You know what I mean? That's because Tark was there.
Absolutely. And we just had Anderson Hunt in studio a few days ago.
And that's my idol.
Yeah, Anderson's a great guy. Idol. Great guy. I'm lucky to call him a friend. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Dominick Young, who is a member of that Fresno State team. Of course, alleged point shaving and drugs and just craziness. So let me ask you this, Dominic. Mm-hmm. With the legalization now of sports betting and allowing states to make their own decisions on whether sports betting should be legal or not, do you think that helps or hurts the college game with some of these young college athletes?
Well, to be perfectly honest, it doesn't even matter to hurt any college athletes because the best college athletes are one and done, and then about 3 or 4 years they bring in the NBA rule back. So, you're just gonna have a bunch of 3.5, 4.0 students in college playing ball now.
We've had that's funny. We've had Tim Donaghy on the show before. He's a friend of the show, a former NBA official who rigged some games. I think that's fair to say, and I think he would admit to that. Do you think that it happens more than we hear about? Do you think that it happens more in the college game and it happens more in the NBA game? Not just players, but officials.
Man, it's happening in the summer. It's
really?
Happening in the summer. It's happening in the park. You know what I mean? I'm a pull up to the casino in a minute. It's gonna happen.
Right. So you think this is happening in the sports world every day?
Every day.
I mean, that's an incredible statement.
Now you gotta understand and look at what just took place. I mean, the people that are saying, hey, what is that? 10 years ago they banned marijuana in the NBA,
right?
Or they had an issue with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now 10 years or so later, the commissioner is sitting down, accepting gambling and betting and things that they're saying that players shouldn't do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're even saying that the MGM Resorts is sponsoring it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
They're accepting a sponsorship from it.
Right.
You know, when you accept a sponsorship, that's like they gonna fund it. You got gambling about to fund an NBA team there.
And you make a good point there, Dominic. There are some people, and I'm not one of them, that say that these athletes are untouchable and they're making so much money. Now, I do think on the other side of things, I'll take their side in that if this is monitored and if games are being fixed, the casinos are the ones that are getting hurt. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. And, of course, if somebody is betting heavy and weird amounts of money on one side, then that's going to raise a flag. So I think that will help in that aspect. But I agree with you on the other hand that I think, at least to this point, Dominic, I agree with you. This has been going on a lot. There's no doubt in my mind, especially what sport do you think it happens the most? Because I was going to say NFL.
What sport it happens the most is baseball.
Really?
Yes.
And why do you say that?
Because it's slow enough to be in the matrix that you can't catch them.
That's an interesting point. JD, do you agree with that?
I've seen strike zones be very, very interesting on multiple occasions. But as far as players themselves, I'm not sure I agree with that. I do think that some umpires do allow very, very large strike zones.
That even goes to the fact of the way they take the drugs and how they control the game.
Right.
In baseball.
As a great college basketball player that you were, did you feel that there were times where maybe some officials were taking books, so to speak?
Hey, I really at that point didn't understand gambling and point shaving, but now that I do, I could look at 3 or 4 officials that I know that was doing it.
Really? Wow.
Seriously.
Wow,
seriously. It's really real. And some officials take it to the point of doing it as a personal vendetta. If they don't like you, they're going to control the game and do the game a certain way.
Okay, so Dominic,
had several officials in Fresno that way.
That's what I'm going to ask you. Okay, so Dominic, give me an example. Because, again, you were a phenomenal college player on a great team. Can you give me an example of an instance that you remember back in the day where that happened, and you can tell us, give us an example.
Let me tell you. I can't remember the ref the name, but it's definitely a fact. So what happened was we're in New Mexico in the finals. This is the year that we're about to go to the tournament. We're done. We're going to the Sweet 16 that year. The first year with Tark, we're going to the Sweet 16. I'm already player of the year in the conference. We beat Keith Van Horn twice. It's over with. It's done. We got everybody's card. You know what I'm saying? And we went into triple overtime in New Mexico, and the ref, I had 9 threes that game, maybe about 6 steals. The ref told me, "You're not going to win this game, Dom," and carry Tark to history.
Wait, hold on.
And let me tell you what happened. Let me finish.
Okay.
What he said. What happened is the third overtime. I said, "Give me this." I passed the ball to McCullough, I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. The ball was up top, and I didn't help down, and McCullough had to go out to the wing, and McCullough can jump. And he blocked the guy's shot, didn't even touch him or nothing, and they called a foul on the Spider. He played in the NBA for a while.
Wow.
And he hit three free throws. We lost.
And you're telling me an official in the middle of a
told me in the middle, the second overtime, he said, you guys are thugs, you guys are thieves, you guys are, and you're not going to run away with this one, Dom. And I'm like, whoa. And I had no clue how it was going to come. And he's the official that called the foul on McCullough.
Oh, my gosh. That could not happen, though, in this day and age.
If you go to that game, look at that official.
I will. But, in this day and age, with all the microphones and all the cell phones and all the audio, if an official was caught saying something like that, they would never officiate again. In this day and age. But that does not surprise me at all. All right, so moving forward now, we've gotten through everything that you've had to go through, everything that Fresno State team in 1997 had to go through. So you got a book coming out March 1st, and I'm assuming a lot of this stuff that we've talked about today will be in that book. But
of course.
But you're also helping young men and working with the Fresno International Prep team. So you're helping these young men, you're coaching them, you're helping them. Tell me about that and tell me how you're involved in that.
Well, first of all, man, I really appreciate you giving me a little time to even mention that.
You bet.
And the fact that I have no control over that. There's people in Vegas that have jumped and let me jump on their shoulders and given me the opportunity because of Tark. Coach Johnson with Las Vegas Prep, who connected the whole dot with this. He has the biggest prep program coming up in October. And Prolific Prep, everybody's on it. And he helped me start in Fresno because he did it for 3 years, and I helped him, I assisted him. And he said, no, go to Fresno. You got Jalen Green, you got London Taylor, you got all those top kids there. You got Terrence Moorhead. You got all of these kids, Mike Odom. Go to Fresno and open up, and you'll be the top guy to be able to help everyone there.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's what I've done, and I've just focused on that. And between Fresno and Vegas, I hope Allegiant Airlines give us a deal that we can fly the players back and forth to Vegas and Fresno.
That's awesome, and it's all about these kids, these young men growing into men, and not just becoming great basketball players. That's the thing about AAU that I don't think a lot of people understand. It's not just about the basketball; it's about these young men, life lessons. Being coached by mentors, and I think that all is very important. I was going to ask you, Dominic, do you remember the last conversation you had with Jerry Tarkanian? Did we lose Dominic? Dominic, are you still there? Dominic, are you still there? I think we lost Dominic, but I was about to end the interview, but I wanted to ask him the last conversation he had with Jerry Tarkanian because, of course, Jerry Tarkanian passed away a few years ago, and I would imagine that Tarkanian was a huge mentor in his life because Tarkanian was known as a guy who, obviously, he did it in Vegas as well. He gave young men chances. He knew that Chris Herren was a drug addict. He knew that. But he still gave Herren a chance, and he gave a lot of young men chances to develop. Some worked out, some didn't work out.
Dominic was actually a really good college player. He averaged about 16, 6'3", and 1.5 a game.
Really?
Yeah, he was only 5'10".
Nothing wrong with that.
Pretty quick.
That's actually pretty good.
Pretty quick defensive point guard.
Dominic, I think we got you back on the line. You there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, B. I'm going through these grapevines right now. I'm headed to UC Riverside Elite Camp. I got a bunch of young pros.
Oh, cool.
Terrence Moorhead with me, a bunch of kids. And
oh, cool. Well, we only have a few minutes to go, but my last question to you was, do you recall the last conversation, the last time you were able to talk with Jerry Tarkanian, and what was that like?
Yeah, and true story, B. He said, Dom, go talk to Barack Obama.
Really?
Yeah, he said, go talk to Barack Obama. He needs to hear you. He needs to see you and meet you.
Did you ever do that?
I haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm. I haven't done it. I don't even know what it means. I've asked a few people, why did Tark tell me that? That's the last thing he's ever told me.
That's interesting. It's funny. I spoke with Barack Obama for 2 minutes in Las Vegas, and we just talked about basketball. I asked him about North Carolina. This was when he was running for president and he was going against Hillary Clinton here to become the guy running for the Democratic Party. And, he's so sick of talking politics, so I said, I got to ask him something that he'll be interested in talking. The man just loves basketball, as do I. So when I asked him about his Tar Heels, his eyes just lit up. And it was at it was a local high school here. He put his hand on my shoulder and he's like, "Man, I don't know if the Tar Heels are going to do it. Duke's pretty good." And he just went on and his it was almost like he was so happy that somebody asked him a basketball question and not a question about policy or Hillary Clinton. But, people could say what they want about Barack Obama. If you disagree with what he did, policy-wise, that's fine. But one thing nobody can never say, in my opinion, negative about the man is that he's a good man. He's a good father. He's a good husband. And he's an extremely intelligent individual. And I'm sure if you found a way, he's retired now, but I'm sure if you found a way and reached out to somebody that is close to him, I'm sure he would be willing to sit down and talk with you. He seems like a pretty stand-up guy.
I'm going to look into that. And I just want to, if I could, man, I just want to thank everybody that's helping me with this FIP, deal with joint opportunities in Fresno, our president, Cassidy Bellinger, our GMs, everybody that's really helping us. I really appreciate it. And Coach Johnson in Vegas, man, y'all got the hand, man.
Yep.
You guys in Vegas got it, man.
Well,
Vegas, the NBA's on the way. It's on the way.
Absolutely, Dominic.
It's on the way.
You know it is.
It's on the way.
Dom, JD here. Clippers or Pelicans, which team does Vegas get?
Clippers.
Clippers,
And
that's
you gotta
right.
understand, I was with the Clippers, so I'm biased. Not only that, they deserve it. And if that's where they practice there sometimes.
Uh-oh. I think he's in a tunnel. I think we lost Dominic in the great.
He definitely just hit a tunnel.
All right, we're going to have to call it a day with Dominic.
No doubt about it.
We're going to have to call it a day. Anyway, we appreciate Dominic for coming in. Maybe he was on one of those Obama phones. I don't know, but
most likely.
No, he's driving in some areas where I'm sure there's not very good cell reception. But hey, we appreciate Dominick Young for coming on. We apologize for some of that language there, but Dominic's a good guy.
Colorful.
Yes, a very colorful individual.
Colorful
That's
language.
for sure. It did surprise me a little bit, though, because he was really, people said, yeah, he shaved points. But what he's trying to tell me is he didn't necessarily do that, which is very strange to me, because the whole story back in '97 was Dominick Young and Chris Herren, they shaved points.
It sounds like he basically helped complete prop bets.
Yeah, but did they even have prop bets back in the late '90s? I didn't even think they had that.
The articles that I read about Gillardin and the other guy, Varnyanov, or whatever his name is. But these guys are betting 10 to 25 grand a game.
A lot.
And what happened was Tarkanian got tipped off by one of his buddies in Vegas who said, hey, there's huge action on these games, and we have no idea why. And Dominick Young missed 3 or 4 free throws in one game, and that's where everything, that's where all this kind of came from. But he was a 70% free throw shooter, which isn't outstanding. It's good, but I mean 3 or 4 isn't
possible.
It's not unheard of.
It's possible, but there were a lot of shenanigans going on with that team back then.
Clearly.
I mean with the heroin use, certainly with Herren, and he's been open about that.
Have you watched any of Chris Herren's highlights?
Oh, my God. The guy was an unbelievable athlete. The guy was ridiculous.
He probably had a 42-inch vertical leap.
The guy would shoot up heroin, and then an hour later he'd put up 40 points. I mean, are you kidding me?
He came from this tiny, tiny Massachusetts town.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, he did spend a little bit of time in the NBA, and I forgot Dominick Young did have a little short run there professionally. But I appreciate his honesty. I do.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, he was very honest with us. And pretty cool. He remembers that last conversation he had with Jerry Tarkanian. It's unfortunate because that was a fun team to watch. And that was a team that could have won a national title. Probably not, but certainly a Final Four, I think, was very possible for that team. And I think people in Las Vegas obviously were rooting for that team, and they were rooting for Jerry Tarkanian. They were rooting for him to succeed. But, boy, he had a couple guys on that team. Some disciplinary issues, I guess you could say. How do you deal with a guy who has that sort of substance abuse problem, and how do you allow him to continue to play? Well, how? Because he was still producing at such a high level. What do you do? I mean, I don't know. That 30 for 30 that they did with Chris Herren, it just shows you the magnitude of the disease that he had, but yet the tremendous ability and the athleticism he had.
Talented he was.
Yeah, and he had a stint in the NBA. He played a little bit with the Boston Celtics. He played on a couple different teams, and he was still able to produce and make money in the NBA. But now the fact that, just like Dominick Young is, he's helping young men with this AAU team, with this Fresno International Prep, and Chris Herren is helping people that have addiction. And I think the fact that these two individuals, they made their mistakes when they were younger, no doubt about it. But the fact that they turned it into something positive now and they're helping others, I think, is something that we all could be proud of with both of them. And
that's huge. I'd like to get Dominic in studio sometime.
We got to get Dominic in studio. We just got to make sure he stays away from those F-bombs. But
we'll figure that out.
That's okay. Dominic's a good guy. And in fact, I know a member of Dominic's family. I used to work with her. Her name is Daphne. I used to work with her here in Las Vegas at this very station. That's how I met her, and that's how I know him. It's weird, all these weird connections in Las Vegas of these people that I know. Oh, and by the way, I think I mentioned this on the air that I officiated one of George Mirasan's games last week. George Mirasan coaches an AAU team. Well, we're going to get George Mirasan on the show next week. I'm really excited about that.
What's his voice sound like?
He sounds like Andre the Giant. He really does. I mean, he gave me his cell phone number on Twitter, and I was going to leave a message, and I didn't even leave a message because his voicemail is like, "This is George. I'm not here right now. Please leave a message." And I'm like, oh, my God, is this Andre the Giant or George Mirasan? I'm making fun of George, but George is awesome. We're going to get him on the show next week. We got some great guests lined up for you. Going to get Toto on the show next week. They're performing at one of the stations.
Sunset Station on Friday, and I will 150% be there.
I know you will. We are also going to have the golf guru, Dennis Silvers, will be on the show next week because we have the PGA Championship. And what is the latest on this Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods drama? Is this going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Is it official? Where's the money coming from? So Dennis will join us next week as well. And we're also going to have the director of the Shriners Hospital for Children's Open. He'll be joining us next week, and I'm going to ask him that one very important question. Do we have any chance to get Tiger Woods? Is Tiger coming to Vegas, yes or no? Not versus Phil, but is he actually going to play in a real sanctioned PGA tournament? So we've got some pretty good guests lined up next week, JD. It's been another fun week in the books. Check out JD Sharp at thewagerfund.com. He is on a hot streak. Quickly, JD, what's your record, Major League Baseball?
42-22, and I have the Mariners money line coming up in about